Hello everybody, thank you so much for being here at Project 13, which is a very new project that started during the lockdown. So I founded this project in December, and Piotr is the first artist that we decided to collaborate with. And now we're going to have a beautiful discussion. And thank you also for being here for the newest launch of the issue of Lynx Magazine. Let me introduce you to the wonderful speakers close to me. So I have a bit of an issue with the Polish name and surname. So if my pronunciation is not perfect, I had Marta training me the whole time, but I might get it wrong, and I hope I apologize for that. So Marta Marsicka is a curator and art historian based in Birmingham. Her interest and practice involves in Central and Eastern European art, and she co-curated the show Major Incident, a solo show of Piotr Krzymowski, with our wonderful other trustee, chairman trustee of the organization, Dr. Dimitrios Tsivrikos, founder of the Neon Gallery. He also consults for Christie, Sotheby and Phillips, professor at UCL, and consumer and behavioral scientist, probably one of the leaders in Europe. And last but not least, the one and only Marek Wolynski. Oh, fabulous! Which is here because Sylvia couldn't join, unfortunately, for COVID travel restriction. And is a London-based curator and creative producer. Marek is also an art consultant and has been writing for Contemporary Lynx Magazine since 2015. Would you give us a little introduction about the magazine, which I believe all of you guys have a copy?
Yeah. I have this double role tonight. I'm Marek, part of the panel, but also I'm Marek representing Lynx. And Sylvia, who couldn't come because of the COVID restrictions. And Sylvia is one of the editors-in-chief of Contemporary Lynx Magazine. And it's an international art magazine about contemporary art, design, photography, collecting, and visual culture at large, I think that's the way to call it. It's been published since 2015 biannually, and what you're holding now in your hands is the 15th issue, which is centered around community. We try to make, or we do make, every single copy unique, and the cover is bespoke, always commissioned artists make it. And then we have a special feature by Dale Lewis in this issue, specifically and specially made commission, and lots of other interviews with key figures in the art world, including Segal, and so many other features that I really encourage you to discover. And that's it, I think, about
perfect. Thank you so much. So today's topic that we would like to explore is art as a drive for community and activism. So one of the first questions that I would like to ask to this beautiful panelist is what is the role of art in activism for you guys? Any of you can start with your opinion.
Who wants to start? Should I start?
Okay.
There you go.
Ladies first.
Yes, ladies first. Well, I think nowadays it's difficult to kind of separate those two areas, because I think activism is so much connected with art nowadays, and so many artists use their art as a way to, portray some problems they see in contemporary world which surrounds them. And it has its deep history as well. From the beginning of 20th century, it was very, very common for avant-garde artists to, to dig deep into those issues like society, contemporary world's problems, etc., etc. So now it continues, and it becomes so apparent, and it's everywhere, in art, in design, in architecture, in sculpture, in painting, in every area. So yeah, it's very much connected, and this show is also a part of this movement, and I think it really successes in that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you. I mean, when we co-curated this show, I think the sense of important. And I think when one thinks of activism, you might think violence, being out there, just, really shouting about your message, your cause. And there's a sense of aggression that a lot of the times, people may equate to activism. But I think aggression and all of that, it is well respected and is fine, is something that perhaps we didn't want to bring in here because at times actually it doesn't create the impact that one needs. But what does create impact is art, because it has a soft power, a soft gentle nudge that will allow people to be activists, to be a part of commotion, to be a part of a purpose, to make and to change the world. And I feel with this show, Piotr, who is at the very core of this, he allowed us to bring that level of narrative that he sacrifices on self and practice as if it's all about me, and he actually said this is about a retrospective of what is actually happening, and let's allow this to be a vehicle for a message. So I think with Piotr's permission we were allowed to use art as the purest, most soft power activism that we can do, that all of us with a message about one work and an exploration of the beautiful community purpose, room that you are actually going to enter and enjoy, can actually be enjoyed. So activism in reality is action-based narration and visual communication that actually has an impact. And thank you to Piotr, who is with us in this room today, who allowed us to actually have this process of being able to actually have a positive step. Thank you.
I totally agree. Absolutely. Thank you Piotr, for being here, and thank you for such a wonderful exhibition. Thank you guys for creating such a show and making it a beautiful journey for all of us. And I think, Dimitrios, the thing that you said about art being so impactful and powerful is the key. When we think about taking actions or making decisions, we always think about emotions rather than facts, like how we feel when we make something. And art, according to the studies I read, please correct me if I'm wrong, is much more powerful and impactful in comparison to scary news reports or raw research data. And art influences and impacts our emotions. In the newest issue of Contemporary Lynx, if I may, there is a great article about art and activism as such. It's here. And it starts with a story about the tapestry reproduction of Guernica, which is in the United Nations headquarters in New York. And before members of the United Nations Summit in 2003 sat down to debate whether they should engage in the war with Iraq, the tapestry of the reproduction was covered up, not to influence their decisions and not to make them think about the atrocities of the war. So while the act was dismissed as a practical necessity, it still perfectly illustrates how Picasso's gesture is valid and impactful. So, and art, again, is a super powerful tool to impact people's emotions and then activate them to make decisions and take actions.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting because art has always been a bit of a medium of communication. No? Since the very beginning, it was the biggest tool to actually talk to people. Also, when you go back in the days when there was very low level of literacy, it was the only way maybe of actually communicating to the general public. So very interesting.
Yeah, the tricky part about activism and art is not to be this person who's standing on the pedestal and telling everyone, oh yes, you should not be doing that, you should be doing that. That's not what we wanted to achieve with this particular show. And I think that's a success of this show as well, because it has so many elements which take away this pressure and this very negative and aggressive kind of way of telling people what to do and what not to do. And it's humor, it's the lightness of the message which is so crucial here.
Absolutely.
Which sometimes is easier actually, to try to inspire people instead of telling them, don't do this, don't do that.
Oh, yeah.
It's I'm sorry, are you my mother? No. So, and when usually your parents tell you something, you do exactly the opposite. So that thing just doesn't work at all.
Absolutely.
So the next question is how do you guys think art could help restore or reinforce a sense of community, especially after such a intense and dramatic period that we all had, and somehow almost made us feel more together as a, you know, community within all the world. Like I used to call my friend in Mexico or like India, and we were all going through the same issue, and you're like, wow. So what's your idea on that?
I think it depends how you see what the community exactly is. I think in the art world, it's important to remember that art community is not just artists and curators, it's also technicians, it's also people who helped put exhibition, volunteers, people who are a bit, you know, not put on the main stage, sort of. And they, fabricators, people who build exhibitions, people who build furniture for exhibitions, this is the community in arts.
Yeah.
And it's important to say that those people were left, you know, without nothing for so much time. And it's important now, when everything is coming back to normal, to engage them in projects, to engage them in exhibitions, to remember about them, because without them, we would not have what we have in many cases.
Absolutely, I think you're right. We need to acknowledge the right people, and you know, it takes a village to build all of this. It's not just you know the three of us and Piotr. It just takes a great deal of people, so we have to recognise it. And I think what the pandemic, and I think you're referring to the pandemic, has actually taught us is that our own well-being, it's supported by other people's well-being, because I think we are quite selfish. I mean, let's face it. I mean, all of us, we're just looking, how do I look, how I think, how I understand, how do I what do I collect, in what sort of, you know, X, Y, and Z we are. But I think this is the first initiative that actually really taught us the important lesson. For me to be healthy, you also have to be healthy. So what do I need to do for my community to maintain a level of healthy spirit or condition? And that moves above and beyond the medical health as such, but what's your well-being, you know, how you are you being looked after, as you said, with the workers, the people around us and so on. So I think it was a beautiful lesson. I mean, again, it was a catastrophe. Sadly, we've lost so many beautiful and amazing people. But, you know, for the rest of us, it's just, again, a real scenario that we're not disconnected, but we are part of a universe, that we are all, you know, interconnected in a beautiful manner, that for that to work, it requires different presence of another work and so on. So I think that was, for me, that sense of community. That sense of community is a level of codependence, of support, not need.
It's interesting what you said, that we are like, again, selfish social beings, no? So we have to fight this true nature that we all have, because at the end also the human couldn't be completely isolated, because that is one of the worst torture that the human has to go through, even though we have this very big sense of individuality, and me, Maggio, you, Marta, like, and all of you guys, it's like, sorry, Marek.
It reminds me of a book that I read recently called Humankind by Rutger Bregman. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's essentially a really thick book about how kind human species are in contrast to what we really think, that we are selfish and we think only about ourselves. There's a veneer theory by a Dutch researcher saying that people are essentially mean, I would say, and they are not good human beings. But the book by Rutger Bregman tells an opposite story. So when you think about it, and there are so many examples of people being really kind to one another, and there's a beautiful quote from that book that says that a better world doesn't start with me, but with all of us. So again, like going back to this community spirit, the sense of community is important, because as long as we think only about ourselves, then of course there is no community, and I think there is no better world. But as soon as we join together and we are part of something bigger, we can achieve it. And to get back to Contemporary Lynx, there's a article about it called Happier Together. And I have no idea why there is a question mark here. There should be an exclamation mark for sure. And it brings together, I think, a collection of few artists who really work together, and they are part of a bigger community. So that's really important to think about when
take note
together.
So, do you guys think cultural and creative sector will evolve and being used to tackle some social challenges that have been raised due to the pandemic?
Well, it already has. It had to. There was no other way. Everything needed to change into the virtual kind of way of culture production or art production, and that's how it was, and that's how, if depending how things will go forward, not to sound pessimistic, but there is a chance that will be locked up again in autumn, and then the only way we could be having all of this is through online activities and stuff like that. And for many people, this is still the case now, even though we're still here now. There are many people who can't enjoy this moment of being together like we are enjoying right now. And it's important to say also on the stream that's, and again, something which I think opens so many possibilities for people who just can't do those things on everyday basis. So that's a good thing which came out of that. That we kind of opened our eyes to make things more valuable for people who can't really do those things every day, and who can't go out and enjoy being together. So this is their way of being together in some way.
I love this, and I think it's a good reminder to actually have togetherness and what we've been through. And I think as human beings, we're herd animals. We need that sense of community. We need that togetherness, and it's great. And I think the pandemic sort of removed us from that network. And I think we all be better in that sense of togetherness in groups. Would that group be a sports club? Would that be a religious sort of component? Would it be a political party? And I think regardless of these things, a family, a partnership, or your work, we all have group identities. We all are part of that. However, I think sometimes some of these group identities become quite toxic. There's a big antithesis between I'm blue, you're white, and why those two should not be apart. So I think there's a sense of division. What art allows us to do allows us to have those group memberships in a more fluid, more flexible, more humble way, that there is room for interpretation. What you see here might be different to me, but we are moving somewhere rather than a really strict combination. So again, I think indeed the cultural sector and the arts can act as the modern contemporary diplomacy of joining people together without having to have a suit of I am X, Y, and Z, but actually a comparison of the alphabet or letters together that define something. And I think for us it's the only way to move forward, because we're international people. A lot of people have traveled in this city. There's a lot of fluidity about categories out there. So we think we need to work with more fluid stuff. And I think art allows that fluidity for us to connect, but yet again to have leeway to be who we are, which is important, to be an individual within that group setting as well. And again, I just feel this exhibition really speaks to that level of collective but individuality as well.
I couldn't agree more. I feel that I just sum up things here being true. But let me tell you about my experience of this exhibition, because it's just a beautiful experience. It starts with really thinking about us as a collective of not so conscious human beings because of all the masks that we can encounter in the very first room. But then we move here to this cosmology, the history of the world, and we are part of the system, and we understand that we are part of something bigger. And as soon as we move to that very room, we not only see home and we become individuals again. And by the time we reach the very last work, we want to act, and we put the hand on the work, and we see that our action can really have an impact. And we will all act together. This artwork, this painting will become white, not black. So we can really change the world and change the environment that we are in. And to get back to Lynx again, I found a beautiful quote that I think summarizes it. That, by the way, I think the author of this article is here with us. It's Alexandra.
Yeah, it's me. Hello.
Alexandra! She wrote a beautiful essay about art branding. And I just want to say, to mention one sentence which says, art is a technology that allows us for multidimensional transformations. And it's transformations and changes that really art can provoke. Like, And to go to the very last mention of the article, to the wings, there is a huge interview with Tino Segal. I don't know if some of you might remember his commission, the Turbine Hall Commission at Tate Modern. And he's the author of so-called constructed situations. So situations that are kind of constructed, kind of improvised, and they go beyond what we expect. And we enter museums usually like we are individuals. I enter the museum as Marek, and then I expect just my encounter with art to happen. But then with his work and with the work of so many other artists, we go beyond that, and we can really become a community and act together. So yeah, going back to your question, I think that's totally possible.
Fantastic. I obviously agree with all of you. I would like to ask something to Marta, which is obviously open to all of you, but because Marta is the program coordinator at Centrala, and she had to carry out several exhibitions and events during the lockdown as well. Personally, I wanted to ask you, do you think art and culture managed successfully to digitalize during the pandemic, and also is there actually a necessity for the art sector to actually have actual contact?
Well, again, I would say it had to go digital.
Yeah.
And I think it's necessary to think about art in this context now, because again, in the lockdown you have so many communities which were just left without nothing, and the only way people could engage with each other, and the only way people could engage with art is through digital activities, and that's exactly what we did at Centrala as well.
Yeah.
We moved our program online. We did a couple of streams, we did like workshops online, things like this, because we just didn't want to leave people hanging.
Of course.
You know, you have responsibility again, especially when you are a publicly funded organization. You have responsibility for people. You need to take care of your community. You need to take care of people who are there. So that's what we had to do.
You find that the engagement was the same, or did you see a difference?
There is a difference in audience.
Okay.
The audience became more international.
Okay.
Because people could join from different parts of the world or Europe or wherever. So it wasn't just Birmingham-based audience as usually. So that was the difference. And sometimes, yeah, we would get more people to join anything we would do online than, you know, in person. That was quite interesting as well. But now I think for this short window of time, people are quite fed up with online things. It's important to still have them there for people who can't be somewhere in person, but I think in this short period of time in summer now, I think more people will be wanting to engage and come around and actually speak to people in person. Yeah, so I think it's like a bit of this, a bit of that.
Yeah. If you guys feel like adding anything, feel free. Otherwise, I'll keep on going. So you are a bit very art knowledge, but also a great psychologist and scientist. So this question is gonna kind of combine both of your personalities, which we're not gonna call them like a personality disorder. It's just.
Thanks, Marta.
You're very welcome. First of all, I would like to ask you, how do you think art can change or inspire human behavior? And would you like the second question straight away, or should we go through these first?
Give me the second as well.
And the second one, because he has done like a research with a PhD student that I found very fascinating, and I would like for all of you a bit to know more, and also it's something that is really in the heart of Project 13 in the way that we would like to inspire our audience. And the question is, why do people choose not to be eco-friendly?
Okay.
Yeah.
Boom!
Yeah, thanks, Maggio.
Are you guys all ready to have a couple of hour lecture?
No lecture. Okay, if art can inspire people, yeah, I think we wouldn't be here if we don't. And I don't want to tire people with that. I think we're all here because we are proponents, ambassadors, and happy people to promote art. And I think art is, it should be our new religion. It should be something that has values, culture, but without the guilt. It's a lot lighter. So, and I think it's a great way to actually soothe the soul, find a purpose that again allows flexibility. So yes, art does help people to heal. And there's no, I mean, if you actually think about it, most, with individuals who suffer from an educational challenge, or they have educational needs and so on, artist has incredible healing properties. And then we go to the healthy population, and art therapy is a bit of a, why? But if it works with people that actually can really heal and develop and grow, imagine what it can actually do to the health population in terms of unlocking potential and bringing peace and creativity and so on. And that's the first part. Now, why we don't engage in, and I have a lab with people that actually work on this topic, on sustainability and behavior. I really still think that if I ask, how many people were in here, what's sustainability for you, every single individual will actually come with a very different orientation of what
Should we try?
We could try. I mean, does someone want to offer to tell us what's sustainable behavior for them, very shortly?
I can do that.
Go.
For me, it's being thoughtful about your consumer decision, like think about it, like where do they come from, and be more aware of what you buy.
Okay, so mindfulness in terms of sustainability, being thoughtful. Thoughtful is like, throwing away 2 bags of clothes instead of 1 bag of clothes, say for instance.
It's not throwing away, it's about what I buy, not what I own.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try to think about it, like usually buying is so easy now. If you think about Amazon, everything is one quick click away.
Yeah.
But if you think before making that click, like do I really need it, where it's coming from,
Yeah. And that's perfect. That's one definition of it. And correct. Boom. 12 points. Anyone else? Anyone else? And it's just anything that what you think sustainability is.
So continuing your point, origin is important, but final destination is also important.
Yeah.
So there was a thing a little while ago about recycling plastic bottles.
Yes.
In that the bottle itself can be recycled, but the lid cannot be recycled. But the thing which blew my mind is that if the bottle goes into the recycling bin and it still has the ring from the lid, that bottle will not be recycled. Because that little ring is too complicated and too time consuming and therefore not commercially viable to remove. That blew my mind. I was like, seriously? So origin is important, but final destination I feel is critical. Because, once you've made the thing or bought the thing or eaten the thing, it's got to go somewhere, And personally, I feel that disposal or upcycling or reuse needs to be investigated.
Okay. Yeah, perfectly viable, perfectly right answers. Precisely. Yeah. Anyone else? There's more. There's a gazillion more.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
Get another glass of wine and feel free to speak.
But we don't want to push people. But I think there were 2 beautiful answers, and they're actually a part of the whole thing. But again, if we ask everyone around the room, they will give us a different thing. So when people need to achieve a goal, the very first thing to achieve a goal is to actually have a clear definition or clear orientation of what behavior or sustainable behavior is. I think all of us feel incredibly to start with, small, but our contribution is if we don't remove that little ring on the bottle, that's wasted. If I perhaps buy a little more than I intended, well, should I just go all the way and just buy everything and so on? So I think we feel helpless just because I think we lack the systematic approach of fighting for something. Say for instance, if you actually go to the gym and you're trying to improve your nutrition or something, when it comes to nutrition, people actually say, I really love to eat things. You're 5 a day, you have your fried vegetables and the whole thing. There is a formula, there's something that people can follow. If you're trying to go to the gym, you say, I'm going to try and lose weight. My goal will be to lose 2 kilos, for instance, okay? And then I feel the goal has been reached. With sustainability, it's so fluffy, so broad, and so diverse in composition, it's really difficult because A, as individuals, where do we start? B, we need also a mark that we're doing well. You can't have this because, you know, every day you get news, bulletins, the world is dying, the polar bears, you know, the ice, but, you know, the climate change, and they're all valid points. So I think we are fighting one big thing, but nobody's actually sort of trying to conceptualize in a way to allow us to have easy access to the topic and to make us feel accountable. Because I think we rely on someone else rather than take personal action. And I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
I think we all have to take that
We all
responsibility.
have our guilt, probably.
Precisely. So I think there is a lack of, you know, we're fighting a beast that we don't know the name, we don't know what it does, we don't know how it behaves, and we still want to do it. We need an identification to actually have a target. Humans with no clear targets, we never meet them.
I found it interesting what you say because it's like marketing-wise, it's one of the most used words nowadays. Now you go, everything is sustainable. Sustainable paper, sustainable chocolate, sustainable clothes, sustainable cup. And we use something that we don't even really know what the formula behind is. So it's a very interesting, personal observation that it's something that is almost overused but doesn't really have a meaning yet because we haven't really discovered what we should actually do in order to call ourselves
Exactly.
sustainable.
And that's where I think art can act, it's not going to solve everything, I'm not delusional, I know there's a lot more work to be done, but going through this exhibition, the discussion, the discourse, all of us for tomorrow, when we have a thing about, you know, your mate's going to ask you, what did you do last night? And then having a story, having the narrative that comes more genuine, that comes more sort of authentic, that gives a form of definition that we can do that, it's a positive step.
Yeah.
So we all make it today a positive step to actually evaluating or reconfirming our course to be more sustainable. Regardless what that is, it has to be democratic, but it has to be there. And I think tonight is a great night, not just only for celebrating incredible art and coming together, but it's also to plant that little seed that if it just once more behavior actually changes, we've made it.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to do.
I 100% believe. Guys, if you feel like adding
Yeah.
anything else, please.
I mean, that's my experience of the very first room, you know, that
Yeah.
Piotr has not called anyone out. That, oh, you're consuming too much, you're throwing like disposable masks, and you're not thinking about what you do. But he confronted us with thousands of masks that he collected. So we already are aware that something is wrong. And we, as a, you know, we need to change our culture. Please go.
Please go.
What should we do with our masks when we want to dispose them?
Yeah.
Give it to Piotr.
I feel like you're asking any person imaginable.
Absolutely.
They are here with us, you know.
They're here with us.
We all were collecting the battles, water battles, to let you know, like, you know, those, like, you know, collective of the friends to friends.
Absolutely.
I know it's not an easy, there's no easy answer to that question.
Yeah.
But at the same time, so it's a question of like, oh, I drive a diesel car. Should I get an electric car? No, it's a question, do I really need a car? So if there is a way to like walk, cycle, take public transport, or you know, make a mask on your own, then yeah, we will find a solution. There's no perfect solutions, I think, right? So,
No.
but we can always kind of get closer to the final goal,
Yeah.
to the ultimate goal.
But we are super creative. I think it can be, it's just a question, it's a genuinely lovely question. There's also can be a challenge. What can we do so we don't actually waste them? Is there anything that we can actually do, from a tent to a domestic sort of, you know, fabric that we can actually use? What can we do? I think we should not, again, I believe that humans are not mean and are not selfish, but we're incredibly creative. And I think we're just sometimes helpless because we see the threat of that big sustainability monster and that big climate change and everything it is. But then I think we need to come back again with that little creative component, how we can be more creative to fight that, and whatever we actually use, reusing a potential component and so on. And I think, again, with, you know, coming with the art and everything, I think that being more creative can teach us ways of actually dealing with that. So the sense of art is that centering yourself with a sense of creativity that could provide a solution. It might be outside of the box, but I think the official route has failed us. So it's time for us now to have a creative solution for it. I don't have the answer, but ask Piotr at the end of the night, he will have one.
Well, his answer is like, I made an exhibition out of it, so like, let me see what you can do out of it. No, but in general, it's like, I completely agree, and I feel like sometimes we always have the tendency of point finger to like either the institution or the other people, la la la, when it's like, when do we start for us to actually be the change? And then probably be able to inspire other people to follow that, or maybe not, but at least you can make a change with yourself. I think anybody wants to add anything else? So I have one last question for the one amazing Marek, which I think is quite interesting because Marek, you've been involved with in multi-sensory experience, the interplay between art, nature, and technology. And what I really want to ask you, in the situation that we're going to be in another lockdown, or a lockdown forever, no? Which obviously I don't know where is the wood, like I don't know, like if you have wood.
I'm already scared. What should I say?
Do you think would be possible to bring this type of multisensory experience in people's home in a new potential lockdown, or is something undoable?
Yes and no. You know, there is no easy answer to that. So hopefully we won't have another lockdown.
Well, of course.
Let's start with that. And to bring a multi-sensory experience, you know, I've worked on a huge production that usually entail like, hundreds of square meters and a lot of interaction with the audiences. But there is a way. There's always a way, I think. And what I've seen during lockdowns is this kind of focus or like highlighting the audio experience. So like Clubhouse and all the other like podcasts that we've listened to. We are of course living in an eye-oriented culture, and we think about images most of the time. But then we have our ears and can hear stuff. So that's one of the things. There's that immersive art company called Darkfield, and they've been changing their psychoacoustic sounds experiences into radio. Yeah. And then that you could listen to it online or like download a piece, which is much better than it sounds. Because it really is a journey. And then also, I brought the links from a couple of years ago that I worked on. Of course. What a surprise.
Which cover is it?
That's 2019.
Oh my god, I have this!
Yeah, and it's
beautiful.
It's dedicated, I think it's still available online if you want to buy it. It was dedicated to multi-sensory experiences, and we had this wobbly jelly on the cover that kind of, you know, brought movement to something that's super still paper, and then you could see that it's there. There were, what was inside, apart from, of course, like beautiful articles and so many different stories, there were tattoos that you could put on your body, and you know, you could kind of touch something, and then you could become part of the of something bigger, and you know, you have this direct interaction with the artist. And I think there are ways, but of course, again, they are limited. There is no like person-to-person interaction as such. But yeah, as long as we are creative, as Dimitrios said, there is always a way to make things and change the state, the current.
I absolutely, and maybe sometimes it's also like we haven't had the chance to explore this way yet, right? Because I mean, I've never had a pandemic before. I wasn't going through the war before. Like, I know I look very old and wise, but I'm actually you know. So thank you so much for all the panels. Now we would like to include all of you guys to talk to all together, and I would like to ask you, what is for you the community? How would you define the word community, and also how did the pandemic redefine the meaning that you give to community? And it would be very nice to just like know what go.
I've got 3 examples. I apologise in advance.
No, it's fine, you can have 20 if you want.
So the first example, which you guys raised earlier, was online communities, and the point where an online group shifts from online group to echo chamber, where instead of being this is our interest and what does this lead into, to this is our group, this is our interest, and anything which doesn't subscribe to this is wrong. So that's the first problem with the digital that I've encountered, and it's prevalent. The second one is on Saturdays I run a Cub Scouts group, and our community is all about running, jumping, climbing trees, getting muddy, making tents,
doing
these things. Right? And so the pandemic for me was a challenge because I had to find a way to try to include that in a digital format or something similar. It didn't work. Because the community is too tactile. You know, it's entirely tactile. You make things. You can't make things through a screen. So where tactility is concerned, I feel that it falls apart. And the third one is folklore. I have an interest in folklore. Been sitting in that about 20 odd years now. And the group that I'm in is connected socially, individually to people in different folklore groups. And these connections stretch from Australia to Canada. And so every 2 weeks, a group would have this thing called Lockdown Folk Down, where they would interview a prominent member of their folk group. And that would be culture, art, clothing, colours, myths, legend, the full shooting match. And that worked because we'd all connect in, we'd all listen in, we'd all, oh, I know this person, I don't know this person, which group are they in? Can I connect? And that was great. So I'd say the pandemic kind of assisted in that process. The pandemic completely did not assist in the scouting process at all. And the pandemic seemed to concentrate the tendency between groupthink, we think, and echo chamber. That's my experience. If any of that sounds familiar or non-familiar, please throw back. I'd love to hear your points of view.
I climbed so many trees in a park during the first lockdown, you have no idea. And I was always going there with my brother. And I was going completely crazy because I'm usually not a person that can stay sit too many times. In fact, today I was like, I have to speak and sit and cannot use my hands. I was like, that's going to be impossible. But I managed it somehow. So it's weird because I was like climbing this tree and then my brother is like, oh, that was super fun. Like, let me climb this tree. And there were these Arab people that were standing after. He's like, oh, look at all those people on the trees. Like, let's climb this tree. And we started meeting at 4 p.m. like in the Hyde Park in front of Lancaster Gate. Each one of us had their own tree, and it was very fast social distancing there. But you know, we were there and it was like, how are you? Very good, you, and we were there like chilling in our tree. So like, for me, for sure, like it created a completely different sense of community because something that I've never experienced before. Now like, they call me tree hacker, but you know, I'm like, yeah, I think I can work with that nickname. You know, I'm lucky that I live next to Hyde Park, I guess. But yes, I don't know if you guys wanna have any experience that you had of how your community changed.
I've never had a tree.
When you said at me.
Yes, I've been to some sessions here.
I would like to join you.
Please, we're not going to release the video because Dimitrios was completely shocked. And sometimes to climb the tree, I have this move that I think is always going to work, which never does, but it's like the seal move, you know, like the seal going the eyes, it's like that. So I like do like that, and it never works. But you know, he was just staring at me, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I have no idea, but like, you know, that's how you find new things.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anybody else that would like to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's interesting when you said during the first lockdown, like I was meeting up with friends and doing climbing, which kind of like reminds me of how we are these interactive beings that love new experiences. So like in the first lockdown, there was a novelty to the first lockdown. So it was a new experience for everyone, and everybody's like putting out new music, putting new ideas out there. So it kind of elicited new thoughts. And then just going off of what you were saying, as time kind of continues, the new experience doesn't exist anymore. There's the second lockdown, the third lockdown, and I'm sure once you got the third lockdown, you're not meeting and climbing trees anymore.
No.
So this is like when
Here is where I cannot start talking because I know.
So this is like when the echo chambers start happening, and even though like, you know, we're doing all these things where we're connecting online and things like that, it actually ends up becoming a more isolating experience than it is a new engagement and an outlet for creativity. So this was just something for me that I observed was a fascinating trajectory of how the pandemic actually affected people. It was something new, novelty, and created something that was like, wow, I actually found in the beginning of pandemic, there was quite a community of like, we're in this together, and excuse my language, but like shit hit the fan, here we go, we're gonna stick together. And then all of a sudden things kind of like deteriorated as time goes on because we actually became more isolated. And so these kind of being together in person and having these new experiences and meeting new people, I think this is what we as human beings really crave and actually grow from.
No, an amazing comment, really, sisters, both of you, and of course from the tree hugger. But I think it is because I don't know whether you know that the first sense that we're actually developing as human beings is tactility, it's not vision. Most people actually think as infants the first thing actually when you come out of your mother's womb is vision and so on, but it's actually tactility. So tactility drives all other senses above and beyond. And hence, if you've seen actually babies placing objects into their mouths at the very early stages, they're trying to explore the world and materials. They don't trust the vision, it's not just there yet, so they're using mouth and hands to explore the world. So I think removing us from a sense of tactility is a social suicide. And that's what actually happened. And that's why people had trees, humans, animals, you know, the very first of how many people adopted dogs. It's not a craziness of actually adopting another dog, but it's actually having another experience of sense of actually being that. And I think we need to find ways, and perhaps during the digital world, during the pandemic, if you can actually send people packs in terms of, you know, something creative, something to do that, we need our tactility to be energized at all times. Otherwise, we socially impacted in a way that will actually change us forever. So tactility is more important than vision, but we tend to do that. And I think with the work that this young man is actually doing, it's actually engaging all the senses, it's a beautiful exercise, almost taking our senses to the gym and keeping them sharp. Because we're not just vision, I think it's just tired. We're all tired of that. And we need that sense of, you know, being around people, please don't sue me. And we need that level of tactility, and I think that's it. And when we finish and we actually see the show, I would like you to explore the sculptures and actually, you know, use, you know, there's a sense to them. And with the work, we actually wanted to create, you know, a sense of, you know, just engage more your tactility, more your vision, and actually send. So a number of these works actually are here to energize you in so many ways above and beyond vision. And that's, I think, technically that we're struggling with online materials. Mm-hmm. But again, we have to combine the two. Yeah. Sorry, but yeah, really good comments.
Very good comment. Now, Q&A, if you guys have any question or anything to say, feel free to talk. If you don't, feel free to go grab a glass of wine.
And can I just say one last thing? We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the creative energy and power of our artist who actually made this feasible, and we wouldn't without his work, we wouldn't. Yes. Can I join you? Can I ask you to join you for a round of applause for me? Yeah. Thank you.
actually formulated this in my head before it's now coming out of my mouth.
That's
I'm
okay.
going to give it a go. So this sort of, this big problem of the human relationship, humanity's relationship to nature, to the planet, and all of these things that we're suffering as a result of that, is essentially like cultural in the head of human beings. So it makes sense that the answers would be within a cultural change. And and I hear you guys talking about like how important art is in order to deliver a message that's digestible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the world of contemporary art is not, a mainstay of popular culture, and often, contemporary artists are on a journey to sort of reach the intangible, and so it takes a certain introduction or mind to be able to connect with that. And so if the answers, so I'm just I don't know if there's actually a question, but I'm just interested in that space in between. How these messages are being told in contemporary art, but are they actually accessible to have a large sea change?
Can I say something that I'm sure you guys would like to add something? Many times art is just a way of some people of communicating, not something. And the first thing when we first get together to start this first exhibition is like, but are we gonna make an impact? Are we gonna make a change or not? That you will never know. If out of all the hundreds of people that we had that came to the gallery, that started talking about something, we managed to touch one or two persons that managed to change something within them and open even a discussion with their friends, and they started challenging some of the beliefs or the ideas, that is already a way that artist specifically managed to talk to a person. Not every artist, not every art can speak to everybody. It's impossible. But it's not about the quantity. It's about managing to maybe enlighten one person, spark a conversation within one person, or challenge one belief, and the way that person sees it and perceives it, and then eventually will share it with other people. Then that it means that it did work, because at the end art is so subjective that you cannot do something that is for everybody. It's not like a mattress, and also a mattress is super subjective, because I have back pain, maybe I'm like this, I have this and that. So you manage to touch one person, two people, it's that you've done something, I think. So to answer your question, it's it's not something necessarily quantifiable. You just need to try and see what the feedback is from people, and you have one person that comes and you're like, Maggio, I would like to meet the artist Piotr, wow, I'm really touched, I never thought about the relation of how we use something to feel secure in the short term. But then you are making me realize to just I come in and I see the impact that this is going to have in the long term. So already for you, thinking the relation between these two things and opening up something that you never even questioned yourself before, it means that piece of art did something for that specific person. And that for me is a winning.
Yeah.
To get back to your formula, Dimitrios, that 5 foods a day and stuff like that, I think what we really lack in art usually is the metrics. So how can we translate an experience into a tangible data or whatever it is that really impacts our life, prices or the consumption, the kilograms, whatever. I'm currently producing one of the British Council's creative commissions for the United Nations conference, climate change conference in Glasgow this year. And we are working with both a team of artists and then a climatologist, a professor from UCL, that guides us on data and climate change facts. Because one level is the creativity and so many ideas, but then the other is the facts and how to merge them together to really appeal to the audience and engage all the people that really view the work. Because it's not about the views that you get, it's all the real engagement that we are after. And that's super vital. And that can be omitted, I think. So it's tricky, like to make a work of art that it's not just an abstract art, but then it's not just a research paper. You need to strike this balance that really gives you some data to think about and that you can relate to the metrics, and then it's still creative and kind of broadens your perception and gives you a direction to go.
No, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And I think it's a beautiful comment and observation. You're absolutely right. And again, it is for us, for like Maggio, myself, and the other trustees. What we wanted to set up with this foundation is actually, again, democratize access to the arts. Because it's elite, because it's closed, not many people can actually access it, so we need to work harder. So this is one of the examples that we actually want to open the doors to like-minded individuals that just want to enjoy and have a conversation. We need to work a lot harder. We're not there, but with the right people and incredible participants, I think we can have an impact. Are we there yet? No. Do we need to work harder? Yes. And I think that's what you're here for all of us to join us with this movement. And I hope we do that. Please support us.
Yes, I'm absolutely in support. I'm definitely on your side because I like you, I'm thinking about it a lot, and how it can, how to make it work.
We'll try, and if he wants, he wants. If he don't want, we do something else, I guess, Change is the only constant after all, so let's go with the flow and let's see what happens. Anybody else would like to ask, say something? Okay, then thank you all so much. There's a bit more dreams, more dreams.